How much money do you actually need to go off-grid? This is one of the first questions everyone asks, and also one of the most misunderstood. Some people think you can do it for a few €100, while others assume you need hundreds of thousands. The truth is somewhere in the middle, and it completely depends on your lifestyle, your location, and how independent you want to be. In this video, we're going to break down real-world off-grid costs so you understand what's realistic in 2026 and how to plan your budget properly. Let's start with the most important idea. Off-grid living is not one single cost. It's a combination of different systems and decisions. You're paying for land, shelter, energy, water, food systems, tools, and backup solutions. So instead of thinking, how much does off-grid cost? You should think, how independent do I want to be? Let's start at the lowest level, a basic partial off-grid setup. This is usually for someone living in a van, small cabin, or hybrid lifestyle. In this case, you might spend around €1,500 to €5,000 for a basic energy setup, which includes small solar panels and a portable battery system. Add another €500 to €3,000 for water storage, basic cooking systems, and minimal equipment. So, realistically, a very basic entry into off-grid style living can start around €2,000 to €8,000. But this does not include land or permanent housing. Now let's move to a more serious off-grid setup, a small cabin or tiny home system. This is where most beginners aim. Here, you start building a proper energy system, water system, and basic living structure. A decent solar setup with batteries and inverter can cost between €5,000 and €15,000, depending on your power needs. Water systems, including storage tanks, filtration, and plumbing, can add another €1,000 to €5,000. Basic construction for a small cabin or tiny house can range from €10,000 to €50,000, depending on whether you build yourself or hire help. So in total, a realistic mid-range off-grid setup is usually between €20,000 and €70,000. Now let's talk about full off-grid living, a complete independent home designed to run year-round without relying on the grid. This is where costs increase significantly. A full energy system with high-capacity solar and large battery banks can cost between €10,000 and €30,000. Water systems with wells, pumps, filtration, and storage can add another €3,000 to €15,000. Waste systems like septic tanks or composting setups can cost between €2,000 and €10,000. And then you still have the biggest cost, land and housing. Land prices vary massively depending on country and location. In rural areas, you might find land for €10,000 to €50,000. In other areas, especially close to cities, land can cost €100,000 or much more. Housing construction for a proper off-grid home can range from €50,000 to €200,000 depending on size and materials. So realistically, a fully independent off-grid home in 2026 can range from €70,000 on the low end up to €300,000 or more. But here's something most people don't consider: hidden costs. These can easily catch beginners off guard. Tools, maintenance, repairs, transport, permits, and unexpected upgrades can add thousands of euros over time. A good rule is to always add 10 to 20% extra to your budget for surprises. Now let's break down where most of the money actually goes. The biggest costs are usually energy systems, housing, and land. Energy systems are expensive upfront but last for many years. Housing is either the biggest or second biggest cost, depending on how you build. Land is the wild card. It can completely change your budget depending on location. Another important factor is whether you DIY or hire professionals. If you build everything yourself, you can cut costs by 30 to 60%. But this requires time, skills, and a willingness to learn. If you hire everything out, your costs will increase significantly. Now, let's talk about a smarter approach, starting small and expanding over time. You do not need to build a full off-grid system on day one. For example, you might start with a €3,000 energy setup, then expand water systems later, then upgrade housing over time. Another important point is ongoing monthly costs. Even off-grid, you still have expenses like fuel for backup generators and maintenance. These can range from €100 to €500 per month, depending on your lifestyle. So let's summarize. A basic lifestyle can start around €2,000 to €8,000. A small cabin usually costs between €20,000 and €70,000. A full independent off-grid home can range from €70,000 to €300,000 or more, depending on land, size, and comfort level. The most important takeaway is this: off-grid living is not about spending the least money. It's about spending smart money. The goal is to build a system that fits your needs, not to overbuild or underbuild. If you approach it step by step, start small, and scale gradually, off-grid living becomes much more realistic than most people think. If you want more practical guides on off-grid living, make sure to subscribe to Off-Grid Life Tech for more simple and realistic breakdowns.